The one of them was a little steep. It was like, I think $500.
Okay, at this time, I will call this meeting of the Port Lavaca City Council to order on this Monday, February 26, 2024 at 5:35 p.m. We will skip the usual formalities and I will start the meeting by asking if there's anyone here that wishes to speak before council. The subject is not on the. That's thousands out there. Seeing none, we will move on to our regular agenda. For the workshop, for the special meeting. And we move to action item number 1, discuss and consider the principal amount of the city of Port Lavaca taxes, combination tax and revenue certificates of obligations 2024. Jody, is it easier for you to say?
Yeah. Mayor Council, recall when we published our notice of intent, we said that we were intending to sell certificates of obligation in an amount no greater than 15 million. And so what we're going to vote on tonight is what is that amount? And so on your, I've been working with the finance committee and basically we've come up with a recommendation of 13.5 million. I want to go through the highlights of that. There's a lot of information here. I don't intend to go through kind of the detail, but it's here. If you've got questions, I will be more than happy to answer them. First, I want to just real quick review our needs, which is on the 11 legal sheet of paper on your table. And it shows the legal sheet. You got that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got it?
There's a column that shows what we were assuming at the time we sold the 2022 series, the 7.5 million. The middle column shows how we have actually spent that item in purple, the 2.65 million. That is detailed down below, which is all in water and wastewater improvements to show where that's coming from. And so then looking at the series 2024, we need a little over not quite 7.2 million for Alamo Heights Phase 2 and 4.4 approximately for Independence. Again, this is based upon the engineer's estimate. We don't have bids yet, but this estimate was updated to reflect unit pricing from Alamo Heights. So, it's the best we can estimate this time what that's going to cost. So that comes down, that totals 11.6 million. Now, if there's 2 other items that actually 3 other items we were talking about trying to include in here. One was adding the road reconstruction from Sand Crab to Half League. This is 4.4 million that we see above here. That only takes us from Virginia to Sand Crab. So if we wanted to go all the way to Half League, not with a sidewalk, but just with curb and gutter and drainage all the way to Half League, we're looking about another $1.6 million. That would bring the whole thing to a little over 13.2. We've also been talking about potentially economic development funds for a lift station on Independence, which is estimated to be about $900,000. If you recall, we had also talked about putting money in there for the Ann Street lift station. If you look on this next page, you see that actually we do have funds now to Ann Street lift station out of the Public Utility Fund Construction Fund. And so this itemizes here that we're planning on using those funds for Ann Street and not have to sell bonds for that. So this details how we're planning on using that balance that's in the construction fund. So that brings us back to what, our needs for this 2024. So if we want to try to fit in the entirety of Sand Crab, we need at least the 13.2 and finance committee kind of around that 13.5 million. If we wanted to look at the lift station, that's going to push us up to like 14 million. So that is our needs. If you go to the other handout, here, it's just got some text on it says no new revenue rate at the top. Let me just go over a couple definitions, again, real high level, and then we can get into the weeds, if anybody's got questions. Just in case not everybody remembers this, I know we go over this every year at tax time when we're setting our tax rate. The no new revenue rate. Because, well, basically, I want the finance committee, they had recommended for us to borrow an amount to reasonably expect to maintain our current fiscal year 2023-24 maintenance and operation revenue and not exceed the voter approval rate. We clearly don't want to do anything that we're going to trigger a potential for get it so high that we would trigger a voter approval rate. So a couple definitions are no new revenue rate. That's the rate that's applied to the same properties that were on the roll in the previous year that would generate the same revenue using the new appraised values. So again, no new revenue will generate as much as we got the previous year. So as appraised values increase, the no new revenue should decrease. INS, that is the rate required to generate the required revenues. And M&O, that's the rate required to generate general fund dollars to maintain and operate the city. So our overall tax rate is the sum of the two, INS and the M&O. Currently, this fiscal year, our overall tax rate is 0.7807, and that's equal to our INS, which is 0.0821 plus 0.6986. Now, the tax laws will allow us to increase our M&O rate such that we can generate up to 3.5% greater than the no new revenue rate without triggering a potential vote. The tax laws also allow us to increase the INS rate to whatever is needed to cover our debt payments. So the Finance Committee's recommendation is to borrow 13.5 million. This amount is expected to require an overall tax rate above our current 0.7807, but near the previous 0.7944 and still maintain the fiscal year 23-24 M&O revenue. Now, the final actual tax rates will depend obviously on the final appraised values and could be different from these assumptions. But with the understanding that council would accept a budget with the same M&O FY 2023-24 as a worst case, then there's no scenario where we would have to consider a rate above the voter approval rate. With the 13.5 million CO, it is reasonable to expect that the rate will increase to perhaps close to the 0.7944. But if the values come in higher or lower than the current projection, of course, that projection would change. And I can tell you when we first met, we were all looking pretty close to the 12.5 million. And then I had a conversation with the appraisal district and because I was assuming, you know, I thought a safe bet basically would be that our total tax value would increase like 2.5%. But after talking to them, you know, they're saying that that's very conservative. That this coming year taxes are the overall tax rolls they're projecting right now could be in the neighborhood of 7%, which would translate. If you look on the next sheet, I'm showing how the total tax rate and our exemptions just about a third of what would be in. That would it's reasonable at this point with the information we have that we could be looking at 4.3% increase in our total tax value. So that's what we used in making projections. So, you know, again, in bottom line, if we wanted to reasonably expect to keep our tax rate at 0.707, we probably be needing to look at 12.5 million. But if we can reasonably expect to have to move that up to close to where it's been previously, the 7.944, then we can look at the 13.5 million. Again, we're not going to be triggering any voter approval rates. Just so you understand what these sheets are, the first sheet is the required total tax value increase that would create the same M and O dollars using the current tax rate of 707. And the column on the right just shows the difference. So you can see for 12.5 million, it's 0.7807, I need to increase by 4.54%. And we're looking at reasonably, 4.36. So it's very, very close. So again, if we were wanting to try and reasonably keep the same overall tax rate, then we'd be looking at 12.5 million. But on the next page, it shows that same scenarios using the 0.7944, that gets us to where we reasonably expect that scenario with the $13.5 million debt. The last sheet just gives all the scenarios using the 4.32% increase with the 0.7944 overall tax rate, just to show, you know, the difference that scenario generates in M&O compared to this current year. And you can see the 13.5 is pretty about the same.
Yeah.
I just so you know, for discussion or information purposes, the last sheet just shows what the projected overall tax rate would be if we went for the full 15 million. And so using this projected 4.32% increase, our overall property tax rate would have to be 0.8117 to generate the same amount of operating revenue. And then below there, that just shows you, well, actually, that's the difference in 0.7944, not 0.7807. But it's not a huge difference, but you know, I don't think the finance committee didn't really want to go there. And so the recommendation again is to go to 13.5 million. And I have talked to, I did go over these figures with the appraisal district. Again, there's no guarantees. There's no guarantees. But with the information we have now, information they're working with, it's reasonable to expect these results.
But to get the most as far as improvements and all, what would be the best bet? Because the thing is I just see everything still going to go up in the future.
Well, with the 13.5, we're giving ourselves a little bit of cushion, you know, except we're not putting money in here for this Independence lift station. Now, you know, we had some discussions on that. You know, we know that the housing authority is looking at a project over there. We can reasonably expect they can try to put that into their financing package for their overall thing. I know there's another developer looking at doing some housing out there. We would just have to, you know, find other ways to incentivize that besides.
Have one
paying for
developer
it.
build it, but if several developers pitched in a little, that would help. And even if we had to pitch in half and we got half, we could probably still
But
manage
I mean,
that
you know,
without putting it into the.
again, if we went to the 14 million, you know, it's possible we could fit that Independence lift station in there as well. But with that, it's, you know, it's more reasonable to expect that the overall tax rate will be higher than that 0.7944. You know, again, all this depends on what actually comes in when they finish all the appraisals.
So with that tax rate 0.7944, I think I saw someone said $200,000 home might cost a person an extra $62 a year or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's well, on that back sheet, and I apologize, I meant to change that, but it gives you the difference between like 81 cents and the 79 cents. Yeah, but it's not, you know,
That was the 81 too.
yeah.
It's still an increase, but if we can show that we're doing a whole lot of work, they're gonna say, well, that's fine. But if we increase the taxes,
And don't
quite a
show
bit,
it.
and they're gonna say, no matter how much work you're doing, you're hurting me. Well, then they're gonna get upset. So I like the idea.
No, we'll
I
keep it.
think came up with 13.5 and just taking the risk. We're not even sure if we're gonna have to increase at all,
Right.
but we take the risk of going up just a slight amount.
No, I understand.
That 13.5, if we stick with that, or we choose the 14, if we choose the 14, is there gonna be more delays? I'd like to get this done without a lot of delays, get it done as quick as possible.
Well, I mean, really, honestly, the only item that's kind of up in the air between the 13.5 and 14 would be this independence lift station. Now, that's not something that has even been designed or anything, you know.
It's 2 or 3 years out. You
Yeah,
have to send it to the engineers to study.
But it's not gonna slow down the bond
it's not
price.
gonna slow down. I mean, it's not, for sure, it's not gonna slow down any of this other stuff.
And we may get the money in by then. Our tax base will.
And we may discover other ways, you know, to get that done.
Yeah, I just don't wanna run through more delays and, wait.
We just have to understand that it is a priority, but it's gonna be a couple of years before we can really get it in place.
Which it,
The
in
gravel
the
we need.
future, it would be more expensive as we keep adding years to it before it's done. Is that correct?
Hopefully it's stabilized. We've
Yeah, things aren't going.
inflation has killed us the last 2 years. It just, everything jumped up.
And again, I mean, you know, if
25%,
something were to
just-
change and our priorities change to where, you know, we decided, hey, the Independence Lift Station is more important than extending sand crab with curb and gutter, I mean, extending all the way. then we can still do that, but right now our priority would be Independence, complete the half league, and then whatever's left over, you know, would be available.
People out there
Yeah,
want us.
county contribute some of that, you
Right.
have some money.
Right.
I could always ask, but I'm not.
About that.
Well, I mean,
That's
basically, I
kind of-
think
No,
they
she's talked to us.
they would participate, but if we're doing curb and gutter and drainage, then there's less room for them to participate.
Yeah.
They would participate if we're just redoing the road ditches. We would, like we've done before, we would pay for all the material and they could do the work, which is, we don't have to make that decision tonight. I mean, doing this with the 13.5, that would give us enough money to pay for the materials. Again, if we felt, if this lift station becomes more important, that would be an option we could look at.
Well, it worked with County Road 101 when we did the material, and
Yes.
the county did the work. I think that was a reason.
But it's not curb and gutter. It
No,
would just,
I
you
understand.
know, yeah.
Oh, with the existing construction that we have out there off of Independence, the sidewalk, you were speaking of the sidewalk from Sand Crab Boulevard
To
to
Virginia.
Virginia, that
That's gonna be-
sidewalk will be used quite frequently.
Yeah, because there's no need to going the other way on the sidewalk.
Yeah, right now with the existing construction, there's not many kids that
We don't
will
even
use
have-
that other.
We don't even
one.
have that in these numbers.
No, and that's what I'm
Sidewalks
saying.
aren't in there.
That, hey, we're not missing out on a lot.
So
if we
again,
just
I mean,
get that.
some of these decisions can be made at the time we actually take bids in a couple months.
Yeah.
Because the extending Independence will be an alternate ad. If for some reason it comes in way high, you know, or we just decide it's more than we were willing to pay for it, we could rethink it and look at just redoing that without curb and gutter.
Even though nobody's gonna walk on it, like I say, there's still gonna be a lot of traffic, you know.
Oh, yeah, traffic, right.
Road, you know.
So the Independence extension does not have,
This 1.6 million does have curb.
does have.
Yeah, it's just no sidewalk, right?
Well, that's important, I think.
Yeah.
The Sidewalk can be added, later.
Right.
So,
Well, I like if you're gonna do it, let's do it right the first time and do it with that, because I just see everything's increasing in price. And I'm not sure that even though we've had the inflation, I don't see it going back down.
It's gonna be about the same,
it'll
but
flatten, but it won't go down.
Yeah.
And it's just,
things are more reasonable.
Yeah.
What do you mean, what do you mean by doing it right? You mean, the whole
The whole
street?
Independence.
well, I would do the whole thing, but that's just me, just because of the fact that this is something, if you drive out, I mean, the road is bad, but you look out there and you see those townhouses, you see those apartments, you see all of these things and the possible subdivision. And I just, so many things that we've done here in the city have been done halfway. Ken will agree with me on that we do things but we just, well, let's just do this part and then we'll maybe get to this and we just never get around to it. And it's so frustrating because, we talk about this is a scenic city. We want it to look good. We need to clean up a lot of it.
So what part are we doing halfway?
So thirteen
So
13.5 million will actually take us all the way to
Right.
Hapley.
Without sidewalk.
From Virginia all the way to 13.5 million, take us all the way to Hapley. The only thing that from Sandcrab Boulevard to Hapley, they won't have sidewalks.
Right.
But on this side where there's plenty of
No, I
construction.
understand.
And I just kind of want to know where you're coming from. Do you think there needs to be sidewalks?
Well, if
on
we
there?
talk about the growth of a city, like in urban planning and things like that, and you talk about the way things grow and the business and all like that, you plan ahead. You don't,
I see what you would like to see
I
sidewalks.
would like to see the sidewalks because, for instance, in Victoria, when the urban planners came in, what they did was they said, okay, what you're gonna see in most cities nowadays, according to urban planners, is you're gonna see the growth will be to the northwest of the city. And that's where the growth takes place. And look at Victoria, where's it going? It's going out that way, like it is going in northwest, but and we talk about, there's a big thing happening there, we've got a lot of potential and all like that. I've heard we've got potential for 15 years. And I haven't seen that.
Well,
I mean, it's slow. And I just get impatient.
So I mean, and just again, to recap, for the 14 million. To reasonably expect to maintain that 79.44, we would need a total tax value increase of 5.3%. Which is not out of the realm of possibility, but right now it seems to be that's kind of a stretch. So we would most likely be looking at an overall.
so you
tax
think
rate
that might take it to the voters?
No, it will not take it.
The 14 million won't take it to
What you
voters.
actually become-
Tax rate, you have to go.
No, it will not, no,
That's on-
it won't go to that. It won't go to that point.
Our ordinance requires the developer to put a sidewalk in.
And then we can't. Yes,
Okay, so our ordinance already requires a sidewalk. So.
but that side, in reality, that side is owned by the school district. It would be a sidewalk to nowhere, literally, because there isn't any.
At this point, if there is a development,
It could be put in later.
I don't want to put something out there that everybody's gonna say, why'd you waste your money on this?
I was gonna say-
Like what TechStop did with these things going all the way out.
Yeah.
to-
TxDOT did all the way to the VFW.
Yeah.
But you know what? Going out that way, I've seen a lot of people out there using it all the way
They
in
do.
from out there because they come out from around that VFW. They're riding bikes,
They do
they're
like 'em
walking.
a lot more than what I thought they would.
There's a lot of.
Oh, they're not supposed to ride their bikes on the sidewalk.
Well,
Well, they do, but it's not, it's,
Bring them on the road, riding your bikes on the road much around here, you'll.
You can get up on the sidewalk.
but the speed would be
sidewalks aren't very.
travel now there.
Yeah.
It's good to be on the sidewalk, whether you're riding your bike or not.
She gave him a ticket for.
So are we at 13.5 or 14? Or-
I say 14.
You telling me Joe rides on the seven? Well, I take that back. Joe.
That's where he usually.
Himself.
tires.
If it's not gonna put it in a big binder, no?
It's not gonna go, to others, but it would be, again, it's what council would be.
So, I said that I could go up to 14, but not for a sidewalk. I would go up to 14 for
For the
cost
lift.
overrun. No, not for the.
Possible.
No, I cannot defend a lift station with ad valorem tax, period. I would not agree with that at all. But, if we have a cost overrun, then the 14 would come in handy. That's the only reason I would approve the 14 in person.
I just kind of feel like if it doesn't get done now, it might take another 10, 20 years where it gets done.
Why do you think it's not?
It took a lot of art to see me past 12.5.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
What bond people were suggesting.
Well, no, they really didn't, we started out at 12.5 because that's what we felt safe with at the time, but then after, it seems like the appraisers are gonna, I wasn't expecting like a 7% jump in value next year, and that's what they're projecting, right?
13.5 is easier for us to work with. We may get some extra interest money.
May have some extra money coming in. Next year, we'll probably have
some of our new construction
Yes, they're.
coming online for taxation.
Mhm.
So our tax rolls will be increasing, so we don't look too bad for the future for our
Well, the
income.
J Bay Estate, I was told today by one of the contractors that they just sold another lot. They're gonna start building. They've sold two of the ones that they've been working on. They're now doing all the driveways for those houses out there. And that they've got two of those sold, and so.
And it takes a couple of years to get those onto the tax roll.
So,
They're gonna put sidewalks in there?
Mr. Barr,
Yeah, they've got sidewalks on those.
13 and for 14, and I'd like to know what, Ms. Padron, what are you thinking? What do y'all think? Because I'll probably go with whatever y'all recommend.
I would probably go with the 14.
We're at 13.5 or
14.
14.
I'll go with the 13.
13.5.
Yeah.
Or half and half?
Tim, you want 13.5 or?
Well, that's what
You
you
said
kind
you
of.
go either way.
Gee,
14.
14, or 13 and a
But
half.
I have to say again, if we go to 14 and you're saying that we're gonna be stretching it a little bit,
No, I just want to be, if, you know, that we can expect that when we all sit down and figure out what our tax rate's gonna be, if we want to maintain the same level of M and O this year, we most likely or can reasonably expect that we're gonna have to go higher than 0.7944,
But not to the voter.
but not to the voter. That is not in any of these scenarios. That
Be
will not
easier to
happen.
work with if we did the.
But if there's a cost
13.5, but we
overrun
could
of a
go-
couple $100,000, I mean, we can probably, we'll find it. Right, our sales tax is trying to get.
That's what I was thinking, but we'll have some.
Go ahead.
Extra.
what was that, Tim?
One of the
I said if there was just a couple $100,000 overrun, we can find that, you know, with that. our sales
The
tax
one thing
rolling
I
at
did
13.5.
learn in all this one thing I did learn in all this, in case you guys don't know, that 1/3 of the sales tax that we generate does work towards keeping our tax rate down. It goes towards property tax. So even though our sales tax went up, 1/3 of that doesn't count because it's goes against increasing our property.
In a conversation I had
Oh,
with
the
Jesse
state takes
Hubble, he indicated to me that next year taxes are going up on property because he said the state says we're
We're out of balance.
Right.
They're already gone.
Oh,
Right,
that's the other thing we have to understand is everybody's taxes are gonna go up regardless of this. So, you know,
Correct.
do we want to jab an extra knife into them?
Or keep it at a minimum.
I think.
I mean, because, yeah, when the
Scratch them.
appraisal district got the report back,
I think. we're at
the
55.
state declared they were only like at 91% and they have to be at 95%. So they're going to have to.
But, you know, I can compromise on that. it just depends. I don't know. It's just
Whatever.
whatever.
Color tide. Now, if you want 14, we need 4.
I got 14.
You got 4?
I got Jim was 14, Daniel 14, and Ken Bonner 14. Alan, you were 14?
No,
No,
I'm 13 and a half.
you were 13.5, okay.
I go back down to 12.5.
That wasn't an option.
Wants to get some stuff done, but
Yeah.
they don't want their taxes jacked up too much, but they could take a little bit.
Get one more person and then I'll vote with all of you.
well, I mean, look at it this way. In reality, what the increase between the increase between 13.5 and 14 is not gonna be much. It's just the idea. If we just accept the idea, from perception, it may be higher than 0.7.
sounds calculated.
It might
14
be
sounds
point-
rounded.
I mean, I looked at, if at the 15 million, I said, what, 81,170. So I don't calculate the
14.
15.
14, what it's gonna be.
0.80.
You're probably looking at, maybe close to 80 cents.
And our finances don't look too bad. If there's a little cost overrun here, and there, we're gonna be able to handle it.
Without going to the 14.
All right, Jack. break it down.
14 is to make us safe. You wanna play it safe, we can do the 14, but the tax, we're gonna have a tougher time with the tax.
By less than,
Huh?
by less than a penny.
Yeah, but
But yes, I mean, it's, in reality, it's not, it's
It's
just
not gonna be that
perception.
much.
I make a motion, we go with 14.
Well, we're not motioning right
We
now.
can't, this is a workshop. We can't.
This is a-
Hey, we're not voting. Right.
Oh, I thought you were in a special.
I'm sorry.
we are.
This is just discussion.
We are in a.
So they know what's out, yes.
Yes.
You were good in.
Yes, this is a special meeting.
I move that we go with the 14.
The other one's the one.
Yeah, we're taking, this is to vote what it is, because I want this to be the council's decision.
We decide on that.
Yes.
And then the next, but we don't make it formal until the next meeting. In case there's something comes up.
Yeah, we're gonna officially vote on what it is, the principal amount, then we're moving the actual sale to March 11th.
So what happens if nobody seconds it?
It dies for lack of a second.
It dies. Uh-huh.
Well, I think I'll go ahead and second it. I like that 14.
I thought you make a motion.
No,
I bet
Jim did.
Jim made the motion.
Okay. So you seconded?
Yeah, keep it alive for a little while.
Well, let's vote on it. You better not. Better be serious about this. Don't bring it to the mayor for a good
We
time.
haven't had a tiebreaker since I've been on council.
That's what we need to do. We need to put Jack in the bind.
It's not that big of a. We should. There isn't that much difference, but.
We should have been
I do
contriving
like
this along.
the-
Make him vote one time.
Okay, so
He's on the fence.
I know, we have a motion and a second to set the principal amount of the city of Lavaca, Texas Compensation Tax and Revenue Certificates of Obligation Series 2024 amount to 14 million. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Can all those opposed raise their hand?
You didn't vote. You didn't say nothing.
Yeah.
Uh-oh, got a tie.
Rosie, here's his name.
Right.
Rosie,
Well, we had 3 nays and 3 yes.
you've got 3 ayes and 3 nays.
All right, Jack, you're on the spot.
This is the first time you've gotten to vote. You've gotten to vote in the 13 years I've been on the council.
I voted once to allow for a variance on parking for one of the gambling joints, because nobody liked gambling, but legally, we couldn't do anything but allow it. So that was a no-brainer.
That didn't last long anyway.
This
That
one-
kind of fizzled.
Going against my concern that don't want the tax rate to go above what we've had in the past. And we might have to go a little bit above. But, I'm gonna vote, since it isn't that much of a difference, I'm gonna vote aye. 14.
You're voting.
Yes.
Enough, I'm voting with Jim over here. It isn't gonna be that much difference and we will have extra money, but like 13.5 better, it's easier on. the
I failed to mention that even our INS rate projections are conservative. Because the financial advisor based it on a 4.75% interest rate, and he fully expects that our actual interest rate will be close to 4.25.
That's the main reason I don't think the 14 million will be that much harder on this. It's, I think, when it's also down.
What, 12.5?
I think we can keep the same tax rate that we were considering for the 13.5 by the time we look at everything.
Well, I'd say your rate, your property value is gonna go up again next year, so that's gonna give you a little bit of cushion there, so
That's the argument.
that's what I'm looking at.
Yeah,
Like I said, I've already been told that the state says we're low and they're gonna go up again next year.
We have
That's
a
why
lot
they
of
went
stuff
up
to
this
do
year.
to the 14.
That's why they went up this year, because the state kicked them back.
Some of us like to be a little bit more conservative.
Thank you,
That's good.
thank you, Mayor.
Motion passed for the 15.
Thank you. We just took a bold move. That's what
You can make Jody have to work.
How's that?
Yeah, working on the numbers all the time to keep our taxes down.
well, that's what she gets the big bucks for.
That's all right. Okay, now we'll move on to agenda item number 2. Consider first and final reading of an ordinance S-1-24 authorizing the issuance of City of Port Lavaca, Texas Combination Tax and Revenue Certificate of Obligation 2004, authorizing the sale thereof and enacting provisions incident related to the issuance of said certificates. Jody?
we're proposing to move this to the March 11th.
If we want it to the next meeting, it would be a good idea.
And that would be a
Table it.
regular meeting.
So I would entertain a motion to table. Number two.
Second.
Definitely to the March.
March 11th, yes.
Yeah, March 11th.
And we'll go to our next meeting, so don't have a special meeting in between. So we have a motion and a second.
Jim.
Motion and a second to table agenda item number two.
That we adjourn this.
No,
No, no.
we adjourn the meeting.
No, it says adjourn the special meeting.
We gotta take-
Are there any opposed?
No.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say aye. Well, I think if you voted again.
No.
Okay.
No, I thought we voted.
Voted earlier, but that was just Jim. Jim talked over it, so I had to reset it.
I'm gonna adjourn.
We have a motion to adjourn. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Same sign. Opposed, motion passes. We move on to the workshop. Action items. All right, this time I will announce that we are starting our workshop session on this February 26th, 2024 at 6:11 PM. As usually, skip the usual formalities. And I will again ask if there's anyone here that wishes to speak public comments before council. Seeing no one else here again. I'm assuming there's no one here to speak, and we will move on to our regular agenda. Okay, agenda item number one is its presentation by Director of Public Works regarding the boil water notice issued on January 16th, 2024 and rescinded on January 18th, 2024. Wayne?
Mayor and council, I have provided everybody with printouts from my presentation. And also do other printouts that will come to the end of the presentation.
And there's also on your packet information from Undying. Description from H2O of the events on the boil water notice. They saw it. There's also they've established in result of our meeting together, they've established a winter weather operating procedure that it's in the package.
Because I asked the paper. Okay.
HCO, the contract company with Undone.
Yes, H2O is their operator.
Oh, they're under here.
It's also on the TV. So in this, we're gonna discuss the notices that I issued in January of this year. Okay, so there were two notices, the boil water notice issued on January 16th that lasted to the 18th. And then public notice for our total trihalomethane exceedances, which was an MCL exceedance for the fourth quarter of 2023. And also the OEL report that I'm required to submit to you for exceedances in the fourth quarter of 2023. Next slide. So the boil water notice is required when bacteriological tests fail or pressure drops below 20 PSI. And there's three reasons for three things that
Root cause. Root cause.
So they're not root causes, but they led up to the boil water notice, which was poor communication, which led to a loss of system pressure. And as a side note, we had the tank that was being taken out of service for maintenance. Slide. So the poor communication is one, my staff failed to monitor the tank levels. Even after they were informed to, they got busy and just didn't do it. We don't have a SCADA system. So I depend on my crews checking the levels, and when that doesn't happen. And then we mailed out flyers with the water bills, but it clearly wasn't enough, and I know I do it myself. I see a flyer in the water bill, I glance over it and it just gets set up on my desk till I pay the bill.
The flyers were,
On how to run your faucets for freezing weather. On the other side of the communication was the plant. They didn't notify us that we were having a high demand. And their SCADA failed due to frozen sensor at George Tower. So the loss of system pressure was the public running flyer. Yeah, running their faucets. We recommended dripping the faucets at 5 drops per minute, which is plenty. It's about movement, not flow when you're trying to keep your water from freezing. However, I noticed on the Houston news that they were suggesting people to run their faucets at a pencil thread.
Oh,
That's, and so how do we beat that, without,
Yeah, if they're watching the Houston news, people say, well, water freezes if you don't run a pencil, Brad, and then, yeah, I can see that it'd be conflicting information.
leads to the next thing. The water plant reported feeding us 1,500 gallons per minute. Well, that's 2.16 million gallons per day. And they couldn't keep up with the demand. And our usual January flow is 1.3 to 1.6 million gallons per day. So with that, 1,500 gallons per minute should keep up with that, but it didn't.
Yeah, and to Wayne's point, they didn't call and let us know, hey, we're sending you 1,500 gallons a minute,
but were they maintaining pressure on their side?
Yeah.
Okay.
So with that high demand, we weren't replenishing what we were draining out of the tanks, which ultimately led to our low pressure. Now, we have 500,000 gallons at George Street, have 500,000 gallons at Village. And we were last year's annual inspection of Village Tower, next slide. Revealed the need to do the maintenance on the inside of the tower. And we pushed off the maintenance till the following week after the freeze. But we still blocked Village in because it took time to drain and the crews were en route to set up. So when we started losing pressure, we opened Village Tower back up, which brought our pressure back up briefly until it was overcome with demand, and then we had to close it back off because it was almost empty. Next slide. Oh, and one of the reasons we scheduled it during the winter is so that we didn't have this problem when we have a 2.5 million gallon demand during the summer. So our steps to prevent, issues moving forward for the boil water is improved communication. And we've talked about this with Undyne and they agreed that communication needs to get better. They put together, behind the report, they put together a winter weather SOP, and I'm still working on ours. And then behind that is what we'll get into next.
There is, the last page is a communications plan between Undyne and the city of Port Lavaca.
What are they doing about the operating, checking the levels of plan to address that?
That's gonna be part of the SOP.
Plan to address the operations not checking the level.
Oh, yeah.
And that's,
Training or what are you
yeah,
doing?
it's gonna be training and communication, and also in addition to that, when we get the ground storage tank project completed, we'll have SCADA for the towers. So we'll be able to see what the levels are in real time. But temporarily, and I ordered the stuff today, I'm going to put a chart recorder in my office that's connected directly to our distribution system. So I'll have a visual every time on the pressure at all times, and I will keep a chart on it so that I'll have records of what our system pressures look like throughout the year.
You mentioned you're changing the standard operating procedures. And you train your employees on those procedures on a regular basis?
Yes.
More than once a year?
Excuse me?
What frequency do you train?
We'll start going over training for issues like that quarterly. That way we keep it fresh in our minds.
Things.
Sound like,
How
as far
many,
as got there, but things happen.
And you can't stop them, but the thing is to do what
What you've done, have a root cause analysis, go over it with your employees and make the correction. So I appreciate that you've done that.
Yes, and I hate to be sitting here and going over this for something as routine as. But in my crew's defense, I've only got. Besides myself, Cindy, Mario, and Michael, nobody else has a water license, so nobody else has actually been trained to. Address this issue. And I had Mario and Michael out running the system, looking for leaks and maintaining chlorine residuals. So that leaves me and Cindy at the office, and we have other work we have to do.
It's a pretty expensive event for our, like the grocery stores, pull all their raw, their vegetables and stuff, and, Starbucks couldn't serve coffee. So, I mean,
Yeah, it's not something we want to do for sure. And it's
And it-
fairly a rare event.
events, it really, I mean, it's just.
It boils down to
to happen
training,
again.
yes, but
Okay.
it's, that's.
I was
And
just
I get-
curious
you
about
know-
how many complaints we fielded during that time period.
Honestly, I don't think we had, everybody understood what was going on.
It's fine with the businesses and
Yeah.
they realize this happens and they didn't really come and complain about it because it happens in other communities, but. They probably should have, and we heard about it later.
One question I had that I had answered generally when we had our sit down with Undyne was, this
Skating.
skater, whatever the sensor, that's what I'm looking for.
Pressure.
The sensor that was froze up, then was Undyne flying blind or what? And it turns out, they weren't totally flying blind. They explained that they were able to still see our system pressure. And so there was a correlation that they kind of had between, well, if they see this pressure, it's reasonable to expect they probably have this much in the tower. It's just that didn't really pan out,
I didn't believe their numbers.
One of the things that I thought I observed as far as being a member of the public and knowing kind of what was going on in the background, getting texts and notes, is people didn't understand how long it was gonna last. And I think if we're upfront that it's gonna be 48 hours. Like, don't keep asking every 3 hours.
Right.
Because it is for sure gonna be 2 days. Every time it's gonna be 2 days. And for us to put out a blast that says, we are gonna do test, send it off, test, send it off. And so it will be at the earliest Thursday morning or whatever.
I think, our concentration was, what TCQ requires us to say and the language we say, but yeah, we can look at supplementing that with some.
And really just simple. Do not expect it to be lifted until at the earliest.
Yeah,
So that instrument that froze up.
it's been replaced.
Undyne can't read that instrument was froze up? Our instrument?
It's not our instrument.
Oh, it's not.
theirs.
Right.
And when the line froze, it kept pressure on it, so they were seeing.
Oh, it wasn't real close, but they kept pressure on
I'm
it.
sure they
The
just,
pressure stayed the
that's
same.
why I said there was a correlation, but,
So as a final note on this. I issued the boil water notice because our system pressure dropped. However. I would have been issuing a boil water notice anyway, because the plant had turbidity spikes that took them out of compliance. So one way or another, whether it was their issue or ours, we were gonna go under boil water.
Their spike was from supplying so much water, they ran out of processed water, and so the turbidity increased in water.
Couldn't keep up.
So how is this SCADA monitoring system gonna work?
It'll monitor pressure, tank pressures,
So-
distribution pressures
And you'll be able to read them from where?
from my computer.
And Undine will be able to do the same thing?
They'll be able to read the towers from their system,
So y'all will be looking at the same information?
same information.
Two different systems though,
Yeah, two different systems, same information.
hopefully.
So with this. Your equipment being frozen, can you go in and monitor it manually? I mean, you can't check on it?
You have to physically go to the tower.
So in that sense, yes, you can manually look at it,
Yeah.
but you have to,
So and your training, this training, is it only gonna be for those that are licensed? Or you
No, it's,
train
it's for everybody.
Okay.
so they know where to go to.
And again, the piece that was frozen wasn't ours. I can't see it anyway. I have no access to their system. I can
So
go
how
How
would,
would you know there was no level though?
from what they told us.
They being undone?
Undone.
Yes.
So you have no indication of the level?
No, we have a gauge right next to it
That's what the operator's supposed to look at.
that didn't freeze.
Right.
And what brought this all on is I heard the third call come in for low water pressure. So I walked into Cindy's office and looked out the window, which I can see the gauge from her office. And it was low. The needle should be over here and it's over here. So I went out, physically looked at it, and we were at 25 PSI. So I called Undine and said, hey, we're running out of water. And their answer was, we're sending you 1,500 gallons a minute.
Which is
all they felt they could send us. Because they said that what they send more than that, it starts
And
messing up the.
so I called land
Virginess.
to send everybody out looking for water leaks, because that's first thing I go to. We got water leaks, we need to go address those. And he called Undine and they told him the same thing. Well, we're sending you 1,500 gallons a minute. Then I go back outside to check the tower. We're below 20 PSI. I go in, I call Jody, I issued the boil water notice, and then I go back outside and the pressure's coming back up.
But then it went back down again after, yeah.
Then it started dropping back down. We opened the village tower because I still had 107 feet of water in it. Which brought our pressures back up to where we were operating. Not normally, I think we were up around 40, 45 PSI. And then they dropped down again. The demand took over. And then later that night, we started once people stopped using water, we started building back.
Were there a lot of leaks?
No, it was faucets.
But you have thoroughly
Everybody
investigated
was
this, and
running.
Undine has investigated, and both you and Undine have taken remedial action. Have plans for the future. You said you wanted to have quarterly meetings with your employees, state training meetings. Did you report training sessions and what you've accomplished and how many and who you've trained? Yes. Report that to Jody so that she can do it as a report to council at our next meeting after.
Once I get the SOP completed, I've got like 14 items on it now, and there's a whole lot more that need to be added to it. I don't want it to be basic and generic. I want it to be detailed.
With the existing SOP, they were going out and checking the gauges
So
now.
we weren't doing the 5 drops,
That's,
whatever, and. we
No,
were
some
going
people were going over.
Steady stream.
Well, it's a lot of people's fault.
So, and
We
also,
need to
Study it and remedy
I
the.
set them all down and verbally told them, you will monitor this. Every time you go by it, look at it, ensure that we're where we need to be. There's no more get out of jail free cards. There's no more exceptions.
So can we
Disciplinary
say,
action be taken if we have this issue
Oh.
again.
also along the lines, like you said, you don't look at I never see my water bill. Joe sees it, so I don't even pay attention. But if there's a blast, especially on Facebook or something, about cause I got calls from people, so I can't take a bath for 2 days. Or however until it's,
And it's-
and I'm like, no. But if we educate the public along with
And it's
our
the same
staff,
thing every
not-
time.
technically like your staff will be, but like you said.
But yeah, it's
You
education.
don't read them till
Yeah.
I never see them.
It's education, and
I don't ever.
it's the same every time you issue a boil water notice, it's the same thing.
It's the exact same language. I mean, TCQ dictates what we have to do.
Yeah.
After that, but we can go above.
We can go above and beyond. You don't have to stay,
I can't change their language,
no,
but I can add to.
right, and no abbreviations, write it all out so that people understand.
So turbidity requires a boil notice also?
Yes, because turbidity can actually increase the bacteria counts.
So the problem is, who is at fault? Us, them, or both of us?
The combination.
It's a combination and I find it hard to say any one party's at fault. I mean, we're both to blame.
Mother Nature do the.
Things happen. It's just a perfect storm.
I had quite a few calls. I know that y'all didn't receive calls. I had people calling, asking questions about the water quality and then were telling me that they're paying for
Yeah, I got that one.
treated water and now they're having to boil the water and what kind of discount am I gonna get? All that.
And the schools had to bring water in, right, to keep operating, so it.
Have you ever seen a guy at Walmart with nine of the biggest things of water bottles packed on a little cart?
Oh, really?
The guy had them packed on there and I've never seen anybody get so many. He had
Never a
the
good
bottom
thing.
and the top.
To keep these to a very minimum, and I think Wayne understands that.
I
Anyhow,
was drinking that water.
when we get our ground storage tanks completed,
I think it's.
I hope to make sure that this is an event we don't have to face again.
No,
We'll have more.
Unless because then we'll have control of our system. Right now, I have no control. And that's,
And I just
It
kind of
drives me
explained
crazy.
to them, it was the weather, and if, you know, that
Like
all
I
the,
said, a perfect storm.
yeah,
Last
it wasn't.
2 years before that.
And really, it wasn't as bad as at 21. I mean, in 21, we also had leaks and stuff. This one,
and
and that's,
in 21, it took us 3 days to catch up.
Yeah.
Well, this wasn't really bad, right?
Only one, that's when we had that
No.
5 days of freeze.
And
He doesn't read his notices either.
understanding that
China for a year.
To the boiler, but it doesn't.
we were required to do it. because-
Right.
For my filter system back here.
Yeah.
I mean,
Let's
What we had on next one. That's all MSO.
You had,
I got even more complaints on it.
you would have had to do it anyway. and that's what it was. Right?
No,
No.
I have nothing to do with their turbidities. We were under boil water notice when their turbidities were covered. I didn't have to issue that.
Just keep us informed. We'll move on to agenda item number 2. Presentation by Director of Public Works regarding elevated levels of trihalomethanes in the drinking water supply. Wayne, I got more complaints on this one than I did on the boil water.
Thanks on this too.
I want to apologize beforehand. This one's gonna take a while because there's a lot of information to go over and I'm sure you guys
Technical.
have.
It scared the tar out of a lot of people in town and they were calling about problems.
So
A lot of times, we don't think it's as bad as you stay in an upper level, below the cutoff. Stay around, 60 to 75 parts per billion.
80.
Well, 80 is
80 is the cutoff, but we stay in that close range because we're scent water that's already hot. But people don't understand, we just went a little above that and it doesn't make that much difference. You're still getting a little bit of it. We did have to send out the notice because we're.
Let me go through all the definitions and I'll get to that point. So trihalomethanes are a group of volatile organic compounds that are formed when chlorine, which EPA and federal government requires us to add to our water, much to many operators' dismay. When it's added to the water for treatment processes for disinfection, it reacts with naturally occurring organics. We're in the GBRA watershed, or the Guadalupe River watershed. We have a high organic load to begin with. So we're adding chlorine to it, we're shooting ourselves in the foot. And unfortunately, there's nothing we can do about it. So moving forward, the MCL, which you hear a lot about, is the maximum contaminant level. That's the level that EPA says we can't go over. The LRAA is the locational running annual average. The OEL report is a report, it's operational evaluation report. And the MCL, again, the maximum contaminant level is 80 micrograms per liter. Or parts per billion. You're from that area. So next slide. The first site is West George Street.
How many sites are there total?
There are 4 in town.
Okay.
I don't have the water plants information. Anyhow, with George Street, quarter 1, we were at 102 micrograms per liter. Quarter 2, we were at 122 micrograms per liter.
This is 2023,
Yes.
right? Yeah.
Quarter 3, we were at 109 micrograms per liter. And in this final quarter, which really put us over the edge, we're at 186 micrograms per liter. Which gives us a locational running annual average of 130 micrograms per liter. That's 50 above what EPA allows. By
80's our target.
Yeah.
80s.
max. It's the
It seems to be GBRA.
the EPA's water quality law. One went in effect in the 70s. That's where
Clean Water Act.
the Clean Water Act, that's where
Is
these.
this measured at?
Huh?
What location is this measured?
This
It's
is,
the addresses are on here.
518 West George.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, and this is where we're revitalizing the storage tank?
no, this is an actual residence.
What's
We
that?
have sample sites throughout town.
Alright, but this is where the tank's gonna be retrofitted?
No.
George Street? No, for-
Well, it's George Street, but it's down the street.
Okay,
Our address is 628.
Okay.
So moving on to Rowan Drive.
The 130 represents the averaging of those numbers. Is that what it is?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So moving over to Rowan Drive, which is the other side of town by the Village Tower. We're at 104, 135, 102, and 152 respectively for quarters, which gives us a locational running annual average of 123 micrograms per liter.
Gives me an upset stomach already.
Which again is near 50 over EPA's limit. Sand dollars, same thing. We're well over 100 for each quarter.
Yeah.
And in quarter 4 being the big kicker at 175 micrograms per liter. And that's the one that really skewed our annual average, put us near 50 over the minimum or the maximum. In 521 South Virginia. Same thing. All over max, although Virginia is probably the best side out of it, and it's the one that drops down the fastest. So quarter 1 and quarter 3, we started coming down in that area, but that area also sees the most usage. So there's not a lot of water aid, there's not a lot of time for the chlorine to react with the organic synthesis.
so George Street is the highest, isn't that the closest though? I mean, to Undine, or is it?
No.
It's not, it's, okay, so it has a higher residence time in that area? Okay.
Yeah, we actually have a very high water aid. Now we can move on to the next slide. So question is how do we solve this? We can do numerous things. One would be at the plant, and that's to introduce an oxidizer at the first treatment train, which generally is like chlorine dioxide, potassium permanganate. There are some plants that use ozone. Anything that'll bind up the carbon immediately so you can take it out. Activated carbon is another one, but that's cost prohibitive on either way you look at it. And then, of course, reverse osmosis, and that's cost prohibitive as well.
Is that the one that Seadrift uses?
Yeah, they have RO,
Yeah.
they have well water.
Oh, okay.
So it's Port Com.
Reverse osmosis.
They're both treating well water.
So, and that's the, you know, stuff the water plant can do. So. And that's out of our control. We can make recommendations.
I don't know if you want to read what Nine's.
No, so they are attempting to address this though, correct?
Yeah, there are.
I mean, when we met, because that was my question, I mean, I know, remember, we've had this conversation, many times and when they purchased the plant, they knew there was this potential for issues. And where are they with their planned improvements? What they told us, and it's on, I printed out, I got this report this afternoon from them, summarize conversations we've had with them last week. Undine has made several upgrades to the water treatment plant to improve both raw and treated water quality. Total methanes and how do you say the H?
Haloacidic acids.
Yeah, that. Byproducts of free chlorine reacting with organics in the water, as Wayne was saying. A couple key components for reducing these are the utilization of the disinfectant zones by reducing the amount of free chlorine in zone 2, still maintaining the total chlorines, which is when you combine chlorine with ammonia, residual in zone 3. Thus, the reduction of free chlorine reacting with organics and the reduction and production of trihalmethanes. This project has been completed and implemented in our treatment process. So they have done that much. Then the other project they're working on that they think is going to make a big difference is settleability is an important factor in reducing humidity and organic. Raw water is delivered to the surface water treatment plant through a diversion canal from GBRA to the Port Lavaca water treatment plant. Raw water quality can be unfavorable due to changing weather conditions. The raw water reservoirs on site at the plant. The project is currently underway to use the reservoir as a pre-sedimentation basin, giving the raw water coming from the canal time to settle out before going through the treatment process. This project should be completed by mid to the end of March 2024. This reservoir will lower the organics being treated and will help to lower the trihalmethanes created in the disinfection process. They're very optimistic that this will make a significant difference in having an opportunity for that raw water to settle out before even hitting the plant.
The improvements in paragraph 1 were in place before this event or after?
Yes.
They were in place before?
I don't know if they were, I mean, they've recently completed that.
Just completed your CT study, so it was just into.
And the other thing I think it's important to note that even once we start getting great results from them, and we even get great results, we're still, this running river average is gonna be with us for a while because we're going back. The stuff, the last quarters aren't gonna go away. They fall off 1 quarter at a time. So it'll take us a while to get back down to 80. Even if our individuals are 80, we've got to factor in these previous high ones. So it'll take us a while.
So the big question is, what can we do? So these are just some options, and I'll start at the bottom of the list. The two at the bottom of the list are just not really options. Activated carbon filtering, again, it's cost prohibitive, high maintenance cost, and we have to re-inject thorium.
Where you at, Wayne? I'm sorry.
Right here.
Say possible.
Okay, gotcha. I'm sorry.
And then again, reverse osmosis, which is probably, everybody would agree, the best way, but again, it's expensive. So that gets me to a tried and true method that they've been using for years. And since trihalmethanes and haloacidic acids are volatile organic compounds, they can be off-gassed. So, and by off-gassing them, we pump water up from the bottom of the tank, expose it to the air, which volatilizes the organic carbons, and then we vent them out of the tank. We'll go to the next slide.
There it is.
And in this, we have the pump at the bottom. And a floating spray head. And it sprays the water, exposes it to air. You have a blower that pushes air into the tank and force ventilates.
Yeah.
And then to take this a step further, I finally got in contact with
There you go.
company that sells this technology.
Well, it's in the ground storage tank, but we're looking at doing this for the elevated.
This is additional.
This is for the elevated storage tanks.
When we discussed the ground storage tank, you said that we were gonna be doing things there that would take care of the one of the issues that we had.
It'll take care of the THMs coming from the plant, but it's not of a scale large enough to remove THMs from everything. And that project, I mean, we need to get moving on this fast sooner than later, and that project could take us till January of next year.
Is there a way that they can install equipment and reduce the trihalomethanes that they're sending us from the plant?
Well, that's-
We're starting it.
But in,
Is
That's
that
what
where
they're
they
hoping
introduce
this
the
is.
oxidizers and?
Well, that's what we're hoping that what
I mean-
they're doing will do.
it's gonna,
If only one of it, we can reduce it to close to 80 here, but if they're
Yeah.
if it's still coming from high from the plant, they're gonna have to do something too first to ever get down to.
See, we're looking-
average.
We're looking at anywhere from 40 to 80% removal with this system in our tanks.
That includes removing what GBRA sent.
That's
Yeah.
what
Undone.
moving what they
And
sent
I
us.
think it's worth noting that, before what was coming from the plant was so high, we were able to keep up with it through flushing. For the
Yes,
most part, but then it got to the point, even the flushing just didn't.
understand that in each of our tanks, there's engineered headspace. So there's always contact with air and water. So some of these volatilize and off gas on their own. Problem is the only time we draw in fresh air is when the tank empties. So we're not forcing those organic compounds out of the tank. That's where one of these systems comes in.
And they blow it out.
We spray the water to release the THMs, then the forced ventilation forces a change of air to remove those volatile organic carbons.
So the freeze and the boil water notice helped our trihalomethanes by lowering the levels of the tank.
They actually made it worse.
Had to refresh the tank. So is it's a residence time issue inside the tank then is what creates it?
It exacerbates it.
Exacerbates it.
So there's an answer to that as well. And the company on one of your flyers, you'll see a page like this.
Yeah.
On the bottom of it, it shows the sprayers, and then it also shows a mixer in the tank.
Yeah.
It's the green one.
That one too.
Okay, either way. So by continuously mixing the tank, you ensure that you have a homogeneous chlorine residual and the water is not getting too hot at the top and the residuals deteriorating. And then you remove what we call the last in, first out. Which is the way our towers work. When the water plant sends us water, whatever goes in the water, the last water that goes in is the first to come out. So you always have that top strata
It's holding.
that gets hot, the chlorine dissipates, and then you get nitrification, stratification, and then you just make these THM issues worse. So by circulating it, you take that out of the equation and then it becomes a homogeneous mix and there's no more last in, first out.
So Wayne, if the river water, the reason why we're adding the chlorine is because it has all these contaminants in it, right? Is that why we do that, or?
No. The good question. There was the best way I can answer this, there was a game that we played in school, Oregon Trail. I don't know if anybody's played that game, but 99% of us played that game, died of cholera. So chlorine is the only chemical we've found that will maintain a residual and kill the bacteria in water for a long period of time to protect us from getting cholera, maybe dysentery, Cryptosporidia, Giardia, I can't even say that word.
So no matter what the level of contaminants, you're still gonna have to add the same amount of chlorine.
Yeah, we're required by the Clean Water Act to maintain minimum 0.5 chloramine or 0.2 free chlorine.
So,
In surface water, we're required to use chloramines.
You have to off gas.
so the blending of water that has fewer contaminants wouldn't change the amount of chlorine you have to add.
No.
But I think the level trimethanes is dependent somewhat on the quality of the raw water coming in.
Yes.
Because, I mean, when we have periods, when we got high organics, you know, I got lily pads all over the water coming in my backyard, you know, I can tell, you know, we got lots of issues. And in some years, we don't have that issue, and so the plant doesn't have as many issues, but. And it's kind of cyclical, you know, we had this same problem, 6 years ago, you know, when we were all talking about a new plant, and that was the solution at that time. You build a new plant.
When I came in 5 years ago, well, 5.5 years ago, I looked at everything, the monthly operating reports from the water plant, our water system, what our chlorine residuals were, what our free ammonia residuals were, everything throughout the system. And to get us back in compliance, I changed the flushing SOP and increased the amount of flushing that we did. The downside of that is we dump a lot of water on the ground. But the upside, we reduced the amount of THMs that were available to us. Now, this isn't just a water plant issue. This isn't just a city issue. This is an upstream issue. We've had a lot of water fall in this watershed. So we're washing all the organics from the entire watershed, and unfortunately, we're into the line. So the water plant itself, which we can all agree is outdated, needs upgrades,
Right.
doesn't necessarily need to be replaced. It just needs to be upgraded and more modernized. If it can't keep up with the organic load that's coming to it, we're never going to be in compliance unless we do something in our system.
Well, the council talked about this previously, that eventually we're gonna outgrow that amount of water we can get from that lease, a GBRA lease. We talked about water wells. And I would think, I don't know, maybe I'm totally wrong, that the water we pump out of the ground would have less contaminants in it. And that maybe we could blend that water with the river water. Now, I understand you still have to add that certain amount of chlorine to that water, but you still wouldn't have all those contaminants to deal with.
Okay,
As many.
you're on the right track. By pumping water out of the ground, yes, there's less organics, but there's not less contaminants. Because coming out of the ground, you got to worry about minerals, heavy metals, salts. That's
Total dissolved solids.
all.
I have another client, we're having to spend a lot of money on arsenic removal.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Oh, we
And-
did testing on
What are we dealing with?
We had a little arsenic in one.
Regardless,
But
the
it- but
future
anyway,
calls
that
for it,
doesn't
you're gonna have more water eventually.
we have high total dissolved solids. A majority of those are salt. So even if we did drill a bunch of new wells and we started blending, we would only be able to blend so much because of the salt content. And
RO the water.
we wouldn't be able to blend enough to reduce the organics unless we went with RO treatment. And
Which is what Port Connor is doing, yeah.
yeah, but on a scale that we would need, we'd be addressing a whole lot bigger number than that 14 million we talked about earlier.
Maybe we can get a grant for an XL reactor.
Yeah, there you go. There you
So
go.
Wayne, you got the water up here that it's gonna be the last out.
Just
Right.
build the RO plant closer
And
to
it-
down. Just
It pretty much,
Plug in.
it stays up there, drops and it really doesn't make it to the bottom. That's what you're telling me. But with the blending, I mean, with the circulation, it'll help. What if we like put a pipe and suck that water out of the top and pumped it back to the new tank that we're gonna put in and then have it circulate, and go back to the well again? Wouldn't that keep the whatever you call it now, the HHMs? By keeping it moving, you said keeping it moving.
Keeping it moving will stop it from stratifying. You have to
Okay, yeah,
aerate it,
So,
release.
part of-
And I like the idea of aeration, but I thought, okay, we've got that top
The movement,
layer up there.
the
that's-
movement of the water actually helps you hold the chlorine residual longer and it reduces the water.
And when we were talking about this before, you hadn't heard back from the guy to get ideas on pricing, but I mean, we weren't talking about a whole bunch of money to do this, were we?
For the aeration?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to put a price on it, but I don't believe it's a whole lot of money.
Yeah.
I've sent him all the specs for everything. And I'm just waiting on,
What's your idea of now? A lot of money.
Less than $1 million, I bet you.
Oh, well,
That's
yeah,
what-
for sure that, but you know.
Well, we have that contract with that company that's supposed to keep our tanks, our water tanks in compliance.
Well, the water tanks in Columbus.
yeah, but this says,
That doesn't have.
this isn't part of the water tank compliance. This is water quality.
Right. Well, I mean, I like what we're doing, but I mean, I guess I was in the impression that when we get the George Street tank refurbished and in operation, we would have our own pumps, we would be able to control our circulation. We would be adding some chemicals to it anyway. I think you think. So I'm just curious. I'd like to see that happen and we'll see if anything else is necessary.
What we're,
I think the point is that again, I don't think we're looking at a whole bunch of money to do this. But I mean, if that's changed, then to your point, yeah, but I think we're a year out before this is operational. And so I don't know that we want to sit around and wait for years if we can do something sooner. But that's what, looking at prices.
and I have, unfortunately, another sit-down meeting with TCEQ coming month over the THMs.
Okay.
They're sending a contractor down to speak with me about what we are going to do to solve this. So this time in meeting with them, I wanted to have something more than just saying, yeah, we're flushing and we have no control. This way, if I can say that this to my council, give them something to think about, this is the direction we're looking at going. Maybe TCEQ will leave us alone until we get it.
And then Undown will have their new thing installed and ready to go by the end of March. Maybe.
Yeah, and they're very optimistic that's gonna help, which intuitively that makes sense. I mean, they're gonna go in and settle.
80 for sure. I mean, hopefully it drops it way below 80.
Well, what they sent us was just above 80 on this last point, right? But they can get it back down.
Down, so we have a chance.
Yeah.
Right. So, okay.
You know, so what they sent us was, I think it was 81 micrograms per liter.
Yeah.
Which violated them because they were over 80.
They're over 80. Yeah.
But the thing to understand is those trihalomethanes were just forming when they left their plant. So those organics are reacting with the chlorine all the way into our system, and then while it's in our tank, they're continuing to react. Which eats up our chlorine. So when we get on the village tower side of town, we're struggling to keep chlorine out. Dumping millions of gallons of water on the ground. So
This won't take long.
this, I don't think we can solve.
Okay, we gotta move on.
And I hope that was informative, and as always, I'm available to answer questions.
Just a swimming pool. Needed to prove that for security, et cetera.
It's just one.
I guess one goes. for-
Move on to agenda item number 3, review of City Hall Master Plan interior renovation, security upgrades, and site improvements with budget estimates.
Council, Mayor Council, you recall at budget time, we decided, we went ahead and budgeted to have, just to have, Ronnie McCoy do an overall plan with some suggested phasing to address some of the concerns regarding primarily security at City Hall. And so I wanted to present where we're at. They did bring back an overall plan, some budget estimates that's in your packet. I can go over some of this real quick, but I can tell you the one thing that I, would like us to consider moving forward with this fiscal year would be the Phase A section, which is security utility billing area, including ballistic glass, redoing their where the public approaches them in the lobby area, and as well as replacing the glass at the drive-through window with ballistic glass. They were able to determine, although it's pretty thick, it's not ballistic glass apparently. But just broad view here, what we're looking at doing, because I can't remember if we really went over this previously or not, but some of the thoughts that we were looking at from a security standpoint is to be able to basically have a secure entrance on either side of City Hall. And so on if you, I know this doesn't have labels on the rooms, but you can tell where City Hall is there. I mean, the council chambers, I'm sorry, on the upper left-hand corner. And so you'll see there's a new or a proposed double door in the hallway, and that would secure barrier basically that you'd have to be keyed in or buzzed in, or somebody would have to come meet somebody at the door to let them in. So the public can't just go wander in through City Hall. On the public side of that barrier would be 2 openings for municipal court. We would be looking at bringing municipal court to the west end, the north end of City Hall. They're close to the courtroom, or, and, where's that?
Right here next to the restrooms, kind of.
Yeah, it's on the north end here.
It's kind of a hallway looking.
See, it says Phase 3. It's kind of where right now we've got, it's just permit file room. Redoing all that to where that would be municipal court. And then next to that would be the municipal judge's office. And then next to that, 2 offices. And so the municipal judge and the 2 offices are on, inside the barrier wall, whereas the municipal court clerks are outside of it with ballistic service windows. And then on the south end, same thing, we would have a door. We would be moving permits to the south end. So they're right there next to where they got to pay for their permits. See, right now you got to go over here, you got to pay your permit, you got to walk back to finance. I mean, you get your permit, you got to walk back to finance to pay for your permit, then you got to walk back to permits, to get your permit. So the idea would be to take permits Development Services and put them at the south end of the building. And so they would be in the area where municipal court is currently,
Yeah.
rework the hallway a little bit to where we'd have a secure entrance. Basically where that door is right now, and then you enter there, and then you go down a hallway to get into the rest of City Hall.
So the exterior door they just put in, that's not gonna come back out, is it?
No, that's that's for the lobby. I mean, that's lobby. This is just to get into City Hall. To, to
So there'd
create a
be-
secure lobby area.
There'll be a secure hallway all over from the south to the north end, or there, like this area right in here.
That's
There'll be a walkway
that's a hallway
there'll
that's
be doors. to keep people
behind.
from-
Well, the security door, that
Yeah.
creates, that you have to have a key card or whatever to get in, or to be allowed in, is right there, essentially where it is
It
right
says
now.
card access.
Says
yeah.
card access controlled right there.
Okay, I got you.
So anything behind that, I mean, there's
It's
no
open.
control after it's all open. So we've had card access, basically a barrier on both sides of building with, permits on the south side and municipal court on the north side. Now, to accomplish that, though, that's where I was, asked them to look at some kind of phasing. Honestly, I don't know how we can do it unless we did B and C together whenever we do decide to do it. But again, we're not looking at, necessarily trying to do that right this second. But I do think, and I got, their estimate is like $60,000 to just redo the glass counter and everything, right there for utility billing with some ballistic, protection there and at the drive-through window, as our first phase. Now, again, looking at, some of the future, things that we're looking at, some of this we're implementing here pretty quick. Which doesn't really take much construction, is the current conference room will become the HR room, and there'll be an area for a small training area. Because currently she doesn't, Rachel is the HR, and she deals with people basically out in the open. So she needs to have some place where we can shut the door, they can have some privacy and know, but people aren't running back and forth. And the some of her files that are down in Lorena's office can all be put in the same place. So that will become HR / training room, and then her area right now she sits now will become the conference room. And then again, we've got these two offices over here, basically just reworking kind of the area where Derek and the permits area is.
So to get to your office, we walk through the conference room?
No, I mean, again, for the public to come visit me, it's just like it is now. You've got to technically go through Rachel. So you go down this hallway, but there is, I could meet people through the conference room. But your entrance would technically be through, to get to the city manager, you go down the hallway to Rachel, and then from there you walk through my back door.
So Rachel's room is where it says phase D?
Yeah,
So that's her office.
but there would be room, you can walk, enter my office from this door.
Well, I guess has the staff looked at all this and everybody's looked at it and
Yeah, we've been looking at this for a while, yeah. And that was some of the suggestions. Again, the primary focus is trying to find some privacy for the HR department, and creating a place for, some training using
It's awkward for employees. to
I do like
sit in
that.
Rachel's office
Permits up close
Talk to
to
her while
the water
Department heads and officials are coming.
elections are done. Yeah,
you'd be in the permit area that's now municipal. Or how many bodies are there?
Oh, well, that would be, the like our current employees be Sarah and the code code enforcement officer and filing cabinets be in the area behind it.
Maybe a new code guy can.
And probably, and Derek's office would be across the hall. Kind of across the hall here. That's,
So right now, if there's nobody at code enforcement, they go to Rachel's office, I guess. What would they do over here if there's nobody in the permit office when they walk
if
in?
nobody's there, then we would have to have some kind of, again, we have a buzzer or something, so somebody would come and do it.
Where's the keyed entrance on this side?
Which side?
Right here. So you come in, this is coming in now, there's council chambers.
I mean, the front door is always locked. You can't even get in that door.
This one is stay locked?
Yeah, you can't get in that door. And on this side, where it says card access control. It's next, you see it right there
Right there.
to the hallway.
Right.
No, further down, over to your south. Kind of where phase A and phase B intersect.
Okay.
There's a hallway right there and it says card access control. It's essentially where the door is right now. There's a card access door now. Then takes you back to finance, but we would be creating a hallway so you can get from there to the rest of City Hall.
So how about that door? Shouldn't that be card access too? So
Yeah, the door-
like
the
if you come through City Hall, you can get to the back without going through anything.
Well, I mean, part of the deal is that, well, and if I didn't explain, I mean, part of this was as a result of a security audit that we did last year. And that was the thing. I mean, you have to have free access for the judge and council to get out. At least we're behind this barrier here. Now, granted, I mean, the loop, if somebody gets in here, they could probably go out the same way too. Now, one of the things he was talking about also in here, and it depends on, how far you want to go, putting some kind of barriers at this end. And it was getting really complicated, but,
The card access, it allows you to get out without a card. You can just.
yeah, you can get out,
but
you can't get in.
Without a
I
card.
mean, these double doors prevent somebody, it keeps the public available for court and municipal court without just roaming in City Hall. This side, you have access to permits and finance without going in and roaming City Hall. To get beyond those 2 points, you have to, call somebody and have them let you in. Again, this is not obviously set in stone, but this is kind of what the building committee had come up with and endorsed generally by the gentleman that did our security audit. But at this juncture, we were just looking at a phase one, which I think is kind of a no-brainer, is to reinforce the utility billing area as we continue to look at the rest of this. There is some outside improvements we'd like to at some point make on the north end, including those bollards and some site work. But again,
This is budgeted already.
I think we had we were looking about just like $100,000 or so, but council didn't approve anything until a plan came by and then we were gonna phase it in. And so that's why I was, if we wanted to go ahead and allow us to at least just do this phase A, which is estimated $60,000, although there would be some additional charge to put a bid package together, but at least get that done.
Let us look at our budget before we.
Yeah, because I don't think
We
to
can
do
determine if we
anything
can.
else, that's easy and it's not too expensive. To do anything else, it's gonna be more money because and I'm not saying we have to do this. This is kind of what the thought process has been. If our objective is to try to protect City Hall. And I'll tell you one thing here, anytime you go to the bathroom, you've got to penetrate the protection, you go out the bathroom.
You mean unless it has a sign on it that says out of service for months?
Yeah.
Speaking of bathrooms, let's make that part of this project.
Yeah,
Ditch Rich and get out there and put that.
That's been out of service for months.
yeah, well,
Well,
Gotta
we've
replace the
gotta-
outside
Gotta
sewer line.
replace the sewer line.
And she,
I think we ought to do
Need to
it.
get a,
answer on, he's gonna dig all that front up anyway, so we might. as
Well,
well
we're
do
not
that
gonna do anything until that gets done.
Okay, so this.
What about metal detectors? Or the entrance over
We're gonna do
there?
that 12th.
There, we haven't talked about that at all. I mean, we have this metal detector
Right.
right there, and that's.
So right now, are the doors unlocked? Can anybody just walk in right now?
We turn it on?
Public meeting, we have to.
It has,
Yeah, I'm just asking.
yeah, it has.
We have to.
Now, there has
An
been,
officer out there.
there has been talk of converting those doors to glass.
Have a gun.
Or bullet resistant doors, so you can see through it. But yeah, a public meeting, they have to be kept unlocked.
Secure that now.
I
But
think if,
You know, again, this is for cuss and discuss. You know, this is not
phase
set
it
in
in,
stone. Any ideas are welcome. This
Can't
is
do it
just,
all at once anyway.
Right.
We got.
I like the way it's going.
But these.
I like the idea of doing phase A and then see how, I guess I just worry that we create Fort Knox and then the public is like, you know.
no, I agree. I mean, I agree that, so it
But
depends
need
on,
to protect the money and the people that are dealing with the money for sure. So I like the idea.
then the judge.
And more, so, you know.
and there may be other ways to do this, but I think this is a no-brainer, is at least to do that, and then we'll see, you know, continue to brainstorm on the rest of it.
Sounds good, yeah.
so if
Just
we're
make sure
able,
staff has looked at it and they, you know.
Yeah, I mean, city hall staffs that help to put this together in its present form.
some outstanding debt, if we were able to collect on some lease money from out there at the Harbor Refuge, well then, I think it'd help us pay for these projects.
You're welcome.
Guarantee you're walking on.
They want more of our money.
Anyway, that's all you know, again, this is a workshop. There's no, action item, but, what I may do is, what I will do is, you know, get with Raleigh McCoy and get a proposal together for them to put a bid package to that together, and I'll bring that to council, and we can decide if we want to move forward or not.
Have we had any incidents that where people come in and get out of line or stuff like that, where it's a threat or
No,
something?
there's sometimes there's people that, you know, that we have panicked buttons at all our desks that immediately PD will, you know.
Most of the time it's been municipal courts.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Nothing
mean,
that would make the news.
and I mean, it's basically just people talking real loud or agitated, that sort of thing, but you know, again, the recommendation is, you know, that we need to be thinking this, you know, and we started this, you know, actually think about all this after you've all. And so it's just, I don't want.
It's pretty loud and heavy out there sometimes.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Good plan. Motion to adjourn.
So moved. Motion.
Second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Same sign. Motion passes.
I made the motion.
Thank you.
Thank you.